Hi, I'm Aaron with Keep Painting Minis, the YouTube channel where we keep painting minis. Today we're going to paint these three vampires, the Vyrkos Blood-born from Warhammer's Cursed City, and we're going to do it in a paint scheme much different from the box art, so stick with me for the whole tutorial to see how that comes out. And in case you didn't know, subscribing is free all day today. But seriously, help out the channel. We upload terrific videos every 10 to 14 days. So give us that subscribe, that like, and that bell button. And join me right back here in just a second so we can get started. Today we're priming with sort of a pallid white because that is the skin color we're aiming for, and that's made with white styrene res with a couple of drops of the khaki mixed and sprayed through the airbrush. And so we see we have our three Vyrkos vampires ready to be painted. So as I mentioned, my paint scheme is going to be quite different from the box art. Particularly, I want the shaded shadow regions to be a blood red, building back up to a sickly pink skin tone. So in order to lay down the shade, I put down a layer of contrast paint, heavily diluted with contrast medium, and then also flow improver so it does an especially good job of flowing into the shaded areas. So I've got a mix of 2 drops of flow improver using a little pipette so that I've got a proper mix, 2 drops of flow improver, 10 drops of contrast medium, to only 1 drop of Flesh Terror Red contrast paint. So now it's time to bring the skin back up to a sickly pink color, and we do that using this successively brighter sequence of olive colors from the Pro Acryl line. Starting with the olive flesh, then we go to ivory, then the bright ivory, and then finally to titanium white with a thin glazed consistency as you saw my thumb there. So work your way around the model, first with the darker color, and then as you move through the brighter colors, you cover less and less of the high points of the model. Now, when using these ivory colors, no matter what paint line you're using, you'll tend to find a chalky finish. And my answer to that chalky finish is to cover the skin then with a gloss varnish, a brush-on Vallejo gloss varnish in this case. 1 or 2 thin coats of the gloss varnish eliminate the chalkiness, but I want to bring it back to matte, and so then I cover it with 1 or 2 coats of the matte varnish once the gloss is dried, and then you get this nice smooth finish. Now we're going to give these guys the dark brown animal-like feet that we see in the box art. And to do that, I went ahead and used Agrax Earth Shade. And I'm always pulling down because I want the bottom of their feet to be darker. And this literally took about 10 coats to get the coloring just right and dark enough toward the bottom of the feet. Now we're going in with the Pro Acryl Golden Brown to highlight the lower leg and hoof areas, hitting the raised surfaces with a slightly thinned down golden brown. Once or twice around, smaller and smaller strokes, just bringing up the contrast until we're happy with it. And then you'll see that off camera I hit the claws with a black and then just a dot of mid-tone gray to bring out those claw features. Next we'll go in for the fur that grows from the vampire skin, and we begin with a base coat of contrast Grunta fur. And these highly textured areas are super for using contrast paints, and you'll see here that I am using a thick brush. It's called a filbert brush, and it has sort of this broad top edge, And I'm loading the brush and I'm just letting the surface of the model take the contrast paint from the brush rather than pressing the brush on the model, which with contrast paints can create those unwanted pools and splotchiness. And now we create the contrast and the depth that we need with a simple dry brushing with the Pro Acryl Yellow Ochre. You see that I have this small flat top brush, which is perfect for this kind of texture. Put a little paint on the brush, wipe it almost all off on your paper towel, nice and dry, and then be patient and brush that flat tip against the grain of the fur. So with two simple steps, the contrast base coat followed by the lighter color dry brush, we've got a terrific look for our fur. And now we're going to take care of the hair. We're going to instantly create red highlights for the hair by laying down a base coat of the Blood Angel red contrast paint. And then you'll see we'll cover that with a thinned down black contrast paint. And the red will show through on the raised surfaces to give us a really cool looking red highlight. So to complete the hair with the second simple step, we're going to go in with a 1-to-1 mixture of the contrast medium and the contrast black Templar and overcoat that bright red color. And you'll see that on the raised surfaces we can still see the red. And I think this look suits these grim dark vampires perfectly. And here we can see on one of the other vampires how that undercoat of Blood Angel red shines through for a terrific red highlight. And now for a simple step with Pro Acryl Coal Black to paint the straps of the vampire's armor. And now we'll come in with an edge highlight for those black leather straps using the Pro Acryl Dark Gray Blue. Tip of the brush very carefully, and you're likely to make mistakes just like I did, so have your black at the ready and your shade color for the skin at the ready to cover up any mistakes and to sharpen up the edge highlight lines. You'll see I'm coming in with black there to sharpen up that line. And here's how that edge highlight came out on the other vampires as well. And now it's time to take care of the silver metal parts, the sword and the armor with my favorite silver base coat, the Vallejo metal color dark aluminum. You can see one coat covers perfectly. It is quite fluid, so you want to make sure not to have too much of the paint on your brush so it doesn't run around. But it's a terrific paint, perfect coverage, nice and bright, very convincing metallic. And now we'll go ahead and shade that armor with one of Citadel's new colors from the contrast line, the Rattling Grime. I think this makes for a perfect grim dark shade on a silver armor. And now we'll come in and highlight the armor back up with the same dark aluminum, just hitting the tips and the edges, leaving the armor mostly darkly shaded because I think that's the right mood for these characters. And here we see that quick highlighting complete on our lady vampire. Now let's get after the concrete pillars with Reaper's Concrete Gray. I just love the fully decorated bases on these models. They're almost as interesting as the characters themselves. So we're going in with this sort of mid-tone gray, and then we'll give it some character with washes and highlights in the next couple of steps. First, we'll wash everything down with the good old standard Citadel Nuln Oil shade. Now note, this is the new line of Nuln Oil, and you'll see that as advertised, it does get into the recesses more effectively and stains the flat surfaces less if you've had some experience with the old style Nuln Oil. So we start our shading with the Nuln Oil to establish our baseline shading and depth, and then we'll come in with some other colored shades to provide some visual interest. While the generous application of the Nuln Oil dries, we'll come in with our base coat of the dirty, muddy ground cover of the base. I'll mention here that as you'll see in the final result, I highlighted the mud with the Pro-Acryl Yellow Ochre. Now we're going back to the pillars with these two shade colors that give them some visual interest. We have the new Citadel shade, Moritarian Grime. I am working that toward the bottom of each of these concrete fixtures, and then more toward the top I am going with the Athonian Camo shade, which has got more of a green to it, whereas the grime has more of a brown to it. And then we're going to highlight the pillars back up with two dry brush coats. First, the concrete gray that was the base coat color, and the next step will be a brighter color, as you'll see. And then we came in with a final highlight color, a dry brushing on the pillars of the bright neutral gray, and you can see the final result here. And now we'll take care of the cool knurly branches that come up from the base with the contrast gore grunt of fur. Love this color. For small features that are not meant to attract attention, this can really be one and done because it really produces the shades and the highlights with just one coat. Now for more details on the base, we've got the skulls and the candles. I'm going in with Skeleton Horde contrast on both, but you'll see that the candles are brighter because I base coated the candles with titanium white, whereas the skulls were base coated with the Pro-Acryl Ivory. And also you can see here now the effect of the dry brushing of the yellow ochre on the mud that I mentioned before. And the final detail is this chain, which we will base coat with the aluminum gray and then shade with the Nuln Oil, and then we'll give that a little bit of a rust look, as you'll see, with a dab here and there of the Citadel Fuga Orange shade. And with that final detail complete, we are ready for the big reveal. Stagehand, the velour curtain, please. And reveal. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed painting. As I mentioned, subscribing is free all day. We upload new painting videos every 10 to 14 days. I know I'll see you back here real soon. And please do support the channel by hitting that subscribe button, that bell button, that share button, and that like button. And provide any comments. Let me know what you'd love to see painted here on Keep Painting Minis. And most importantly, you yourself, keep painting minis.